prior on this channel, when discussing the works of Park Chan-wook of late, I made a brief note of praising in passing the TV miniseries adaptation of John le Carré's The Little Drummer Girl, which he had directed. Of course, this novel had been adapted before as a 1984 feature film directed by George Roy Hill and starring Diane Keaton with Klaus Kinski. And Le Carré remains one of the most critically cherished of authors to regularly receive populist adaptations, that is, just regular studio-helmed thrillers which pander to the condescended lowest common denominator rather than the film critics, literary critics, or those who actually read Le Carré in the first. The year 2016 saw the release of both television miniseries The Night Manager and feature film Our Kind of Traitor. Both are effectively garbage, for maybe some would question the quality of Le Carré's text toward the latter stages of his life. That being said, 2014's A Most Wanted Man, most well known for being Philip Seymour Hoffman's final film role, not in Hunger Games at least, and thank God, Hunger Games apologists appealing to populism or accusations of reactionary snootiness are utterly limp. These vapid young adult power fantasies are encouraging more ruthless policewomen than Ulrike Meinhof's and certainly not Rosa Luxemburg's, you totally irredeemable tools. A Most Wanted Man is actually quite a good film intended for fans of his, Le Carré's literature, directed by a respectable figure in Anton Corbijn, responsible for the great 2007 Ian Curtis biopic titled Closer. Of course, 2011's Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy is something of a modern classic, one of the most counterintuitively paced, commercially anyway, recent mainstream features, one also densely watchable. A rather impressive accomplishment indeed. So this brings us to The Little Drummer Girl, written for the screen by Michael Leslie and Claire Wilson, and it's utterly belittling, narrow-minded, stereotyping, and aggressively vapid without removing the genuine existentialism of spy activities attached to their human subjects. The fact of the matter is, firstly, any portrayal of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in media is intrinsically exploitative and highly callous. This whole both sides are capable of inhuman evil shtick would not be applied to South Africa, Turkey, Kurdistan, or Myanmar regional conflicts, so why insisting the conflicts depicted in this film are more nuanced is simply propagandic and nothing more. The portrayal of the Israelis is not too totally objectionable, actually, an amoral CIA-esque inspired depiction of a ruthless, hyper-practical Mossad pathology, more concerned with intimidation than with principle, and distinct from Hollywood or general televised depictions of the American CIA, this miniseries Mossad is indifferent and amoral to the core, rather than the few bad eggs charade which Hollywood prefers to portray government spy agencies as. To an extent, they are depicting Mossad as somewhat badass, but at the same time they aren't celebrating it as a just organization, because who actually thinks that outside of insane, bloodthirsty, hyper-nationalist fanatics, right? But in the depiction of the Palestinians, oh boy, wow, okay. So this is everything that English-language right-wing media hates about depictions of the Palestinians, and the Palestinians themselves, their supporters, and the cliched, predictable left-wing media vessels will have every reason to detest it too, maybe even more so. Okay, so why demonstrate the most vile and sadistic illustration of Palestinian political violence when you also intend to try and sympathize with their cause? The most repugnant, unlikable portrayals of Palestinian terrorists willing to blow up little children, speak in the most cartoonishly dastardly of villain speeches, manipulating and grooming resentfully written young females. The sexism here is no byproduct of that's just portraying realism. It is a concerted effort to posit certain character flaws as expected feminine behavior when a film or television series is depicting an instance of highly unethical behavior, making a note of the gendered nature of the violence, in this instance a younger woman encouraged by a manipulative male. One can appreciate the need to show how certain crimes can or have occurred in the real world. However, it also flippantly employs the most repugnant of misogynist fantasies and delusions when doing this. Certain behavior, if depicted, is inherently glorifying it, and so this topic is really one which can only be portrayed in a likely sexist manner unless handled by a woman with nuance and complexity, which if Claire Wilson attempted this, maybe she was shut down. It is a high-budgeted TV job, a potential low-key Zionist propaganda piece, so maybe one just has to sit down and shut up after a while. The point is, it's a pretty shoddy piece of writing, but the plot beats retained from Le Carré are still somewhat riveting, and the direction is certainly very sound. But the sheer fact is that this manner of media needs to, in some ways, go the way of the dodo. The depictions of these characters as detestable and amoral, selfish blank slates, and who are meant to be relatable at that, namely the female protagonist portrayed by Florence Pugh, is truly revolting. It sets the lowest bar for our species' behaviour, capitulating to the most crass of cliches regarding feminine behaviour, and disguising it as binary realism, so called, about as sexually progressive as the old misogynistic fables of Jezebel, Clytemnestra, or the power-hungry, low-key power fantasy for defective, unwanted sociopaths, that is, of Lady Macbeth, female lead in the most one-note, predictable and uncaptivatingly nihilistic and dully so of Shakespeare plays. People only like it because of all the violence spectacle. As a script, Macbeth is so banal to the point of rendering the Western canon an inane, inconsistent joke. I am concerned that if women do not consider characters such as those portrayed in this series, namely Florence Pugh's Charlie Ross, but also the characters of Anna, Sophie, and Helga, as unequivocally sexist tosh, then truly the sufferers of the world are blinded to their oppression and subjugation. Again, I'm not saying that no women ever engage in such unethical behaviour as depicted in the series, or are susceptible to manipulative vermin men as in this film, Israeli or Palestinian, by the way, just so we're clear. But to parade it around as a plot device is so grossly cynical. It is the equivalent of making a film or series about women making false rape allegations. Yes, it occurs, but yes, you are attempting to aesthetize a testy issue which is weaponized for socio-political purposes, and you are contributing to this problem. It just goes to show how entrenched certain tropes are in the society we live in, or that they were still seemingly omnipresent in the later 2010s at least. Consider also if a film or series had been made about malevolent high school bullies, caricaturishly neglectful mothers, or dull, power-hungry, money-lusting social climbers. I know those all exist, but to a point, highlighting their existence in highly mainstream media is a vacuous and very ugly statement. It sets a low bar rooted in very gross cliches and prejudiced assessments of the female psyche. Just as Sorkin's The Social Network intrinsically glorified Zuckerberg's sociopathic predation, Saving Private Ryan glorified fighting in a war for America and all of that, or Schrader's Hardcore in acknowledging female sexuality offer the most patriarchal and ancient Greek of you better lock 'em up or they'll do irresponsible, dangerous things, dispositions regarding women, such a sickly male take on alleged, morally indifferent female sexuality imaginable. In light of recent events in the region of Israel and Palestine and the continued engulfment of old media cliches into cliches enforced by the self-righteous brigades of modern social media, let us hope that productions such as this one are extinguished permanently. Again, I will praise Chan-wook's photographic handling of these scripts, but these scripts belonged in the fucking bin, and anyone who disagrees has been apparently okay with being condescended to, and sometimes I have more disdain for the willingly, happily condescended than the condescenders themselves, and the potential praise which this series would receive from mass audiences is precisely the reason why. I am sick and tired of these cynical, pseudo-realistic depictions of certain characters which claim depth but only demonize them. What a lowest common denominator take on humanity. Willingness to commit to disgusting behaviour does not a complicated character make, and it never has. Trying to push these characters as relatable and nuanced is abjectly profane, and the writers ought to be ashamed of themselves. Although Chan-wook, accept better work, but nevertheless, all things considered, good work.